Hey everybody, today I'm going to take you through the 2 free Steam demos recently released by Happy Home Games, the company headed by John Alvarado from the Intellivision Amico debacle that is now releasing some previously Intellivision Amico exclusive games on Steam and Nintendo Switch. Why did they spend money to set up a new company to do this while pre-order customers are still waiting for refunds and have been told they'd have to wait years to get their money back? It's not entirely clear, but some believe it could be a way of avoiding paying a cut to the investors who gave over $12 million on Republic, or perhaps it has to do with the fact that the previous companies have faced other troubles like owing over $400,000 in back taxes reportedly. Whatever the reason, let's look at these 2 demos. First up is Evel Knievel. This is a port of a $2 iOS mobile game that was released about 10 years ago in 2015. Here you control Evel going through various obstacle courses. The demo lets you play the first level and a level from the middle of the game. When I first turned it on, I was told to use left and right on my controller to either decrease or increase my speed, or while in the air to rotate in one of 2 directions. Let me tell you, it may sound simple, but this game has a bit of a learning curve. For one thing, you may imagine your goal is just to gun it, to accelerate enough to make big jumps just like Evel did. But in fact, you need to learn how to, at times, delicately maneuver through the tracks, knowing when to accelerate and when to brake, and when to rotate your bike one way or the other. Also, the idea of making your bike rotate in the air using left and right wasn't easy to grasp, especially when the same button or joystick movement can quickly change from accelerating to raising your tire when you start leaving the ground. I'd rather have moving your motorcycle tires be assigned to separate buttons or movements on the joystick, like pressing up to raise my front tire or down to lower it. That simply makes more sense to my brain. On the original game, you tap left and right on the screen with buttons overlaid that would change depending on if you were fully on the ground or not, showing if that button press would make you go forward or backward or raise your rear or front depending on if you're airborne or not. This on-screen mental reminder is missing in the demo. Thankfully, I discovered that I could substitute A and B on my controller for controlling my bike, and I preferred using that method instead. At first, I hated the controls, wishing the game controlled more like Excite Bike for the NES, using a button for gas, maybe one for brake, and the D-pad to move my bike. But after about 30 minutes or so, I got used to it enough to pass the 2 included stages. Although I will admit there were some times that I crashed and I wasn't sure why it worked one time but not the other. The controls still don't feel natural to me, and I could see young children also struggling to grasp the controls in a game from a system that originally promised simple to pick up and play games. As far as changes go from the original, it appears to be mostly the same game. It seems they added a multiplayer option, yet you couldn't try it out on the demo, which is odd since that seems to be something they would like to highlight. They also gave Evel liposuction, making him a bit thinner. When you crash, the game tells you to tap to continue, which makes more sense if this game was still using a touchscreen, which it isn't here. It also boggles my mind why you wouldn't give more dedicated controller options, such as reassigning the configuration, so raising your front or rear could be moved elsewhere and even customized. And instead of changing Evel's waistline, how about adding a speedometer on the screen? Why the multitude of QA testers in the credits didn't raise these points, or if they did, why they weren't applied, is bewildering. And by the way, many of these additional testers are fans who have stayed loyal to the company despite its lies and poor treatment of both customers and investors, and have done this work for free. So I guess congratulations on your reward of getting the credits of a video game. I'm sure the YouTubers in the mix will give unbiased reviews when the game is released, unless they don't. In the end, I didn't care much for this game and would rather play some Excite Bike on the NES instead. And it still feels like a $2, maybe $3 game when you take into account inflation, but if they release this for $14.99, which based on the Amico home game prices and the Nintendo Switch published prices, that's most likely what it will be. At that point, it's a hard pass. Next up is a game that I was the most interested in of the two, Finnigan Fox. This is a remake of a 7-year-old game from 2015 called Fox and Forest that is currently available on many platforms including Switch and Steam for $10, although the game occasionally goes on sale for $2 or $3. The original game is a charming little title that features some nice pixel art and chiptune style music. Users at Metacritic gave it about a 7 out of 10, and after playing through the game myself recently, I'd say that's a fair rating. Finnigan Fox is the same game at its core with several changes. The most obvious is the new cartoony graphics. While I thought the electrocution animation was funny, overall I prefer the original pixel graphics, although I wouldn't begrudge anyone for liking the new look. However, what I really don't like is the Vaseline smear they put over the previously nice looking backgrounds to fit in with this new cartoony style. Tommy Tallarico's fingerprints are really apparent to me in the changes to the music and story, with him being credited as a new music supervisor and part of the story script changes. The chiptune style music has been reorchestrated and redone with more of a rock style soundtrack, which sounds like something that came out of a video game's live concert. Personally, I think it loses some of its charm that way. Here are the two games back to back. Whose graphics and music do you prefer? It seems like all the characters have been renamed. Rick the Fox is now Finnigan Fox. Patty Partridge is now Pauline Partridge. The season tree has become Bodhi, a type of tree tied into Buddhism. And he now tells bad dad jokes and quotes Willy Wonka, which seems like a totally Tallarico thing to do. And then there's Retro Badger, who in the original game charged you a small fee to save at checkpoints and speaks in retro Easter egg talk after you save. Now he's Benjamin Badger, who charges nothing to save, shows up more often, and no longer says anything at all when you save, removing any interesting characteristics. The opening story has changed quite a bit too for such a small intro. In the original game, Rick is a naughty fox about to catch Patty for dinner, but Patty tells him she tastes terrible and instead recruits him to fight the green-eyed horde with a treasure reward promise, to which Rick agrees, starting a redemption arc of sorts for our hero. Now the opening story is much simpler. Finnigan is now simply a brave fox who stumbles into Pauline. This new line is my favorite for all the wrong reasons. Though his way may be lost, his luck's still around. A partridge, his luck has been found. So his luck is around, so it's not lost, but it's lost, and he found it. I don't know, it's totally confusing. And it looks like he might want to eat her, but he just agrees to help her with her quest for reasons, maybe for treasure. On its own, the story makes little sense and no longer really matches the illustrations, unless you squint kind of hard and know the original story. Beyond checkpoints being free and more often, the gameplay is further dumbed down. Some moves you previously had to earn are now unlocked from the start. Several new platforms have been added to levels to make it much easier to make certain jumps. And you can now shoot when you're crouched rather than doing a stab attack when crouched, although it still calls it a duck stab on the pause screen. They've also seemingly taken away the mana ores and the grindstones that you used to collect for various upgrades, some of which you now get for free or you could just pay straight gold for. The original Fox and Forest had 3 difficulties, and just the right amount of challenge in my opinion. Finnigan Fox also has 3 levels of difficulty, but due to all the changes, the hardest mode of Finnigan Fox feels like an easy or super easy version of Fox and Forest. Why they didn't just use these changes for the easy mode or for a 4th super easy mode while leaving the other difficulties alone, just like the original, is beyond me. Hey guys, guess what? A lot of kids and other potential customers are actually pretty good at video games and actually want a challenge to overcome. I will say there is one change I do kind of like. Magic seeds are hidden throughout the levels. It can be difficult to find, as some of these levels are quite large. You can now buy a map that actually isn't a map, but rather it makes a bird chirping sound when you're near a hidden seed. Unfortunately, these chirps were painfully loud when I first came across them, but I do like the idea of having the ability to buy some form of help to find these seeds, even if that ability is locked until you either beat a level boss or finish the game first. This demo only allows the first stage to be played, so no boss fights for you. This demo does allow you, though, to play the multiplayer mode, where up to 4 players can play a simple, and I do mean simple even if you select hard, shooter level. Whoever collects the most money by the end of the level wins. However, these stages only take about 90 seconds each. They do not show your score until the end, and if you get hit, supposedly you lose all your money, which seems like an overly stiff penalty. There were talks about allowing multiple players to play the main game, maybe like Sonic 2 with Tails, but this is nowhere to be found in the demo. As someone who enjoyed the original game, I do not understand the appeal of this remake, especially when you can buy the original for $10 or much less on sale. And it's most likely going to be another $15 game. Just about all the name changes and story changes are not real improvements, and in most cases feel like downgrades. Most of the gameplay changes take away a good portion of the challenge and make this the weaker choice of the 2 for most gamers. Some may like the new graphics and musical arrangements, but even that is a toss-up at best. Why not leave the original story intact? Maybe only changing the Fox's name, retain the original gameplay, and add a super easy mode, and maybe even giving the player the option to switch between the 2 graphic and musical styles at will. In that case, you would get the original game and more. But alas, what you're stuck with pales in comparison to the cheaper original, at least in my humble opinion. Now, I played both of these with different controller setups, including wireless Xbox controllers, which seemed to work fine for the most part. But one time when I was playing Evel with keyboard controls and trying to take a screenshot through Steam, all of a sudden I couldn't play the game right after. And sometimes Finnigan Fox gave my Xbox 360 controller problems on the menu screen. Nothing major, but I thought worth mentioning. So there you go, 2 demos of the games originally designed for the Intellivision Amico that are based on cheaper, older games, and really, in my humble opinion, don't improve enough on the originals to justify purchasing them at a higher price point. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Have you tried the demos? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.